Hi, I'm Dr. Richard Cunningham. I previously talked about apologists and biblical scholars butting heads and speaking past each other. Today, I wanted to give an example of it because I keep seeing it again and again. And it's about the Old Testament / Hebrew Bible prophecies being fulfilled in the New Testament by Jesus. On the one hand, we have apologists who make claims that Jesus fulfills the messianic prophecies in the Old Testament. For evidence, they'll point to Isaiah 7:13 through 14, which reads, "Then Isaiah said, 'Hear then, O house of David, is it too little for you to weary mortals, that you weary my God also? Therefore the Lord himself will give you a sign. Look, the young woman is with child and shall bear a son, and shall call his name Emmanuel.'" Then the apologist will go to Matthew 1:21 through 23, which reads, "She will bear a son, and you are to name him Jesus, for he will save his people from their sins." All this took place to fulfill what had been spoken by the Lord through the prophet. "Look, the virgin shall become pregnant and give birth to a son, and they shall name him Emmanuel," which means God is with us. Then the apologist will say, "See, Isaiah had a prophecy about Jesus hundreds of years before Jesus was actually born. And then he was born, and therefore the prophecy is fulfilled." However, the biblical scholar will come in and say, "Not so fast. I have 3 issues with what you've just said. 1, this prophecy is not messianic. There's nothing about the Messiah in the passage. It isn't even used in a messianic sense until after Christianity. 2, the prophecy must obviously be fulfilled in King Ahaz's time. If you read the whole context, you'd see that. Starting in Isaiah 7:10, we read, "Again, the Lord spoke to Ahaz, saying, 'Ask a sign of the Lord your God. Let it be deep as Sheol or high as heaven.' But Ahaz said, 'I will not ask. I will not put the Lord to the test.' Then Isaiah said, 'Hear then, O house of David, is it too little for you to weary mortals, that you weary my God also? Therefore the Lord himself will give you a sign. Look, the young woman is with child and shall bear a son, and shall name him Emmanuel." The biblical scholar will say, "See, this prophecy is not 100 years away, but has to be within King Ahaz's lifetime. It is for him. This prophecy is directed to him, not hundreds of years later, but within his own lifetime so that he can see that God is God." The third issue that the biblical scholar would have would be with Matthew 1:23. And that's the use of the word virgin, or in the original Greek is parthenos. Now, what seems to have happened here is Matthew is following a tradition of the Septuagint, which is the Greek translation of the Hebrew Bible or Old Testament, and its rendering of Isaiah 7:14. Now, parthenos can be translated as virgin, and that is how obviously Matthew takes it in his gospel. However, in the original Hebrew in Isaiah 7, it's not the word parthenos, obviously, because that's Greek. It's the word alma, which doesn't have the connotations or even definition of meaning virgin. It simply means the general word for maiden. Then the biblical scholar will say, "See, all of these apologetics don't show a fulfillment of prophecy. You're not making your point and you're not taking the text seriously." And they drop the mic and say, "I'm out." However, I am not out. There's a lot to unpack here. My main concern is that the biblical scholar will tear down the apologist's argument and just leave it at that. I don't see any flaws with the biblical scholar's reasoning with finding holes in some apologists' use of Isaiah 7 and Matthew 1. The problem is that they then, most of the time anyway, do not go on to explain what the text means. What is the text doing then? If it's not what the apologists say, what is Matthew doing with that text? First, Matthew is not dumb. He is highly educated, especially for his time. If you want to explore that more, you can see my video about that on the channel. Second, Matthew does not say that Jesus' birth will fulfill Isaiah's prophecy. Matthew says rather in the text, all of this took place to fulfill what had been spoken by the Lord through the prophet. Matthew doesn't use the word prophecy, and it doesn't use the word messianic or Messiah-like or Messiah. In fact, Matthew's phrasing seems like it has typological fulfillment rather than prophetic fulfillment in mind. Now, you might be asking yourself, what is typology? Well, typology is not a makeup company. Typology was a common interpretation strategy during the time of the New Testament. Typology understands real events and or real people of the Old Testament / Hebrew Bible as types that metaphorically have their real counterparts, antitypes, or fulfillments in Jesus or some other part of the New Testament. Matthew knows full well that Isaiah was not thinking about Jesus when he made that prophecy. However, Matthew does think that God had orchestrated all of Israel's history to anticipate the coming of Jesus. That is what's going on here. It's typological fulfillment, not prophetical fulfillment. Now, was this pretend apologist right? No. Was this pretend biblical scholar right? Yes. But was this pretend biblical scholar helpful? That's a different question. That's a little bit tougher to say. I think when we just knock down other people's arguments in biblical studies, especially of apologists, we're not really doing our audience a favor. Remember, as biblical scholars, as everyday biblical scholars, we're here to help and help educate people, not just knock them down. So I hope this category of typology, of typological fulfillment helps. That's it for today, and I'll see you in the comments.